Welcome back to Pack Mentality. And today I'm going to be talking about the differences between methodologies and principles when it comes to fitness. Now, this is something I've seen lately is that too many people jump from program to program without actually understanding the underlying principles that drive results. And what this episode is geared to do is to help you make sense of the noise and build a sustainable fitness journey. And this is what we'll be talking about today. We're going to define what methodologies are, we're going to define what principles are, and also the why behind fitness. We're also going to talk about the relationship between principles and methodology and how they actually intertwine. Then we're going to talk about navigating fitness using principles and how that can be tailored towards you specifically. Then we're going to talk about some real world examples of some of the clients that we've seen here at my gym, Red Wolf. And we're going to go into common misunderstandings and mistakes. And then we're going to wrap things up with actionable takeaways that you can actually use on your own fitness journey. If you don't know me, I'm Matt Bauer. I own Red Wolf CrossFit in Huntington Beach, California with my wife, Caitlin. And we started this podcast with one goal in mind, and that was to make fitness education accessible, engaging, and effective for everyone. So I've owned my gym for 12 years and I've been coaching for 17. And in my coaching career, I've helped over 10,000 people reach their fitness goals, whether it be lose weight or gain muscle. I've also competed in regionals 3 times and coached multiple regional athletes. So I had to learn this very early on in order to make a better training protocol or better training program because I wanted to drive results as fast as possible. So I'm really happy that I learned this early on. So let's go right into defining what methodologies are. So methodologies are specific systems or programs designed to achieve certain outcomes. So a broad example of this is CrossFit is designed to have a broad inclusive fitness. Wendler's 5-3-1 program is a powerlifting program designed to get you better at squat, deadlift, and bench press. And then you have something like F45 or Orange Theory, which is geared more towards weight loss. Okay. So it depends on the goal and what outcome you're looking for. And what the whole purpose of a methodology is to provide a structure and a roadmap towards where you want to go. And it caters to specific goals, so whether it be fat loss, strength, or endurance. And some downsides of over-reliance on methodologies is that you risk plateau, especially when the program doesn't adapt to progress. And I see this a lot when it comes to CrossFit specifically, because there's a ton of sub methodologies within the CrossFit methodology. So it's like we have kind of like a CrossFit inception. So we have CrossFit, which is a methodology of fitness. And then in that CrossFit methodology, we have sub methodologies. So we have, for example, hard work pays off. We have proven, we have Invictus, we have, did I already say hard work pays off? I think I did. We have whatever training program is out there that's popular. I don't even know what they are anymore. But the thing is I see a lot of gyms specifically get this wrong, is that they apply a program towards their clientele and then they expect just to see results without having any kind of tweaks or assessment to what their goals actually even are to begin with, what their ability level is, and they don't customize it. So they don't make their decisions based on evidence or data. They're just like, hey, this person's popular and they're selling a training program. It's only $50 a month. I'm just going to plug and play into my gym. And as long as they're working out, it'll work. So in a way, that's true, because, any movement's better than no movement. But at the end of the day, if you actually want to drive results, there has to be some sort of customization to it. And this is something that I think we do really well at Red Wolf, is that we collect data, we see where everyone's at, and we see where we can kind of fix the leaks in the bucket, if you will. So, for example, if we do a training program, we build it out to increase either a 1 rep max or whatever our goal is. And then we get the results back after the end of when we retest everyone, and we're like, okay, well, we're deficient in this area, so we're going to be a little more biased towards this, and we're going to kind of back off on this because everyone did really well. We're still going to maintain it, but we're just going to kind of shelve that for a little while until we will come back to it eventually. So what that allows us to do is to make changes very quickly to the program rather than just kind of a plug and play style. And the problem is that people will react to different training stimuluses. And when you just throw someone in there and expect to see results, it's probably not, they'll see results for a little bit because they're working out. But over a long enough timeline, you're going to plateau. And then this is why people quit in the first place. Like after a year to 3 years, people get burned out or they're not seeing results. And it's because everything works for a little bit, and especially if you're a beginner, but over time, things need to change and they need to adapt to you specifically. This is why we have 4 levels at our gym. I'm not gonna go into it, but we have 4 different levels, and we interchange it between our clients to make sure that they're maximizing their time and the results with us. Um, let's go into principles and the why behind fitness. So we've already defined methodologies, but principles are the universal truths in fitness that apply regardless of the methodology. So some examples of this is progressive overload. We know that 5 sets of 5 back squat works, and if we add 5 to 10 pounds every week for 4 to 8 weeks, that you'll get stronger, specifically in that 5 rep range. And then specificity, I can't even pronounce it right now. Recovery, and then proper movement and mechanics. We know all these matter towards getting fitter. If we don't move properly, you're not gonna do the exercise right, and then if you don't do the exercise right, it's not gonna get the right stimulus, and so forth. You're not gonna get better. And why principles matter is simply the fact they are timeless and adaptable in any goal or situation, and they provide the foundation for customizing methodologies. And this is what we do here. We kind of take the CrossFit methodology at Red Wolf, and then we ask our clients what their goals are. We take a look at their in-body scan, where we look at their body composition. Do you want to lose weight or do you want to gain muscle? Okay. Do you like lifting weights? Do you like doing cardio? Like, are you more for endurance or you're more for strength? Like, we ask all these sorting questions when our clients, when we onboard them, so that way we can adapt the program specifically to them. And this is why our clients see such good results in such a short amount of time, because we actually ask. We ask people what they want to work on. We ask people what their goals are. We look at their data, both in their body composition and in their training, and then we make tweaks to that training program, and we continually making sure that we're cycling things through, we're not missing anything. And then we also have our build and burn program as well, which is supplements to our classes to make sure that we fill in all the gaps in the meantime, so people don't miss out on losing the gains that they made in the last cycle, because it's impossible to do everything concurrently. So that's why we just have a step-by-step process that gets the results that we want. And some examples of fitness principles in action. I think the biggest one that is the most overlooked is recovery, because recovery is a principle because you can't work out 24 hours a day. Obviously, you need to sleep, and that's where all the magic happens, is in the recovery. You actually break down muscle tissue, you have micro tears, you go into an oxygen debt when you do a CrossFit workout specifically. And in order to make gains, you have to recover properly. And when I say recovery, I don't mean by taking rest days. I mean taking your nutrition seriously. I mean taking your sleep seriously and cutting out alcohol. And I see this all the time. People stop making progress because they're not willing to do the things outside of the gym to help them recover from the intensity and everything that they build up inside the gym. And they're just spinning their wheels. And then this is why people stop making progress and then they quit. Let's go into the relationship between principles and methodologies. So methodologies are like vehicles and principles are the fuel. And how to identify misalignment on both of these is that a methodology that's focused on, for example, just losing weight, so it's like a boot camp style, will work temporarily. But if your goal is to get stronger and to build muscle mass, you're going to stay very stagnant for a very long amount of time. And this is why I like CrossFit specifically, because, I don't want to be huge like a bodybuilder. I also don't want to be a marathon runner. I kind of want to be in between. I want to be ready for any situation. So that's why I love CrossFit, because I get the best of both worlds. I hate doing cardio still, so it's short, so I don't have to tolerate it for an hour sometimes. And I also like to lift, so I get a little bit of everything, and I feel like it's the most versatile training program when it's the methodologies applied appropriately. And evolving methodologies is extremely important, because as you train and as you get better, what gets you from point A to point B isn't what's going to get you from point B to point C. So you have to make changes, and that's again what we look at when we're looking at the data and our training, and we're like, okay, what can we change? What we can do to continually make gains, because 5 sets of 5 back squat will only work so long. And then after that, you're going to have to add in cluster sets. You're going to have to add in 20 rep maxes. You're going to have to add in single leg work, tempo work. You're going to have to mix up things with your reps, sets, tempo. I already said tempo, but rest periods. So all these things, so we know the principles work, but then we can start making tweaks to the methodology itself to continually make gains. let's talk about navigating fitness using these principles now. So, you have to first off understand what your goal is. Is your goal strength, health, aesthetic, performance, longevity? Identify what that is, narrowly define what you want, and then go from there. And then, what principles actually matter to you? Is it progressive overload? Is it movement quality? Do you want to work on recovery? You have to identify what's actually holding you back the most from getting towards that goal or identify the constraint. And then once you select your methodology or whatever you want to move towards, then it's time to choose one based on your goals and principles. It's really that easy. And then if you value longevity, if you prioritize functional training, if that's what you're looking for, CrossFit's great. If you're looking just for simply weight loss, CrossFit will still work. But if you don't want to lift weights, then go do Orange Theory or F45. And eventually that will work. But eventually you are going to plateau because it's the same generic thing over and over again. There's no changes to the stimulus. And then you have to adapt and iterate. So you always have to regularly assess where your methodology serves your principles. So see where you're at, get data based on either your performance, body composition, whatever is the most valuable to you, and then make changes from there. And then by switching from a linear progression model to periodization once you plateau is also very important as well. I'm not going to go too far into that, but linear progression is where, let's say you're doing another good example is just the 5 sets of 5 back squat. We add 5 to 10 pounds every week for 4 to 6 weeks. We will get stronger. But then periodization is where the planning goes kind of a more of a macro view and where we make tweaks along the way. And it's just not linear where it's like, okay, there's with periodization, there's loads, there are deloads, there's different styles. There's, for example, if you're doing deadlifts, then we do segmented deadlifts, then we do percentage work, and then we do banded deadlifts. We do deadlifts or speeds, so you can see how things can change very quickly based on where you're at. And you have to be open to change as well. So fitness isn't static. It's, the principles but must remain constant. And methodologies evolve with your goals and at your life stage as well. So as you age, your methodology has to change. You're not going to be doing, like, for example, for me, I was competitive in CrossFit at one point, but I'm not going to be putting up 315 clean and jerks for reps anymore. So based on my life stage, I have 3 kids, run the business, I still do CrossFit, but my methodology has changed from competitive CrossFit to longevity CrossFit. So I still do all the same exercises, time domains, and everything, but the volume is considerably lower, and so is the loading. I still lift heavy, but relative to where I was, that's not my end game anymore. So yeah, I made changes along the way. We're going to go into real world examples of some of the things that we've seen at our gym specifically. So let's talk about a good example. Number one is a beginner athlete. So progressive overload is going to work very well for them, and just working out in general is just going to, just frequency is probably the most important thing when it comes to a beginner. So there's 3 core things when it comes to training. It's frequency, intensity, and volume. And for beginners, frequency is the most important thing. Volume intensity doesn't really matter. And the beginner stage can be a very long time or very short time based on the individual. And again, this is why it's so important to assess the person on a one-on-one basis. And then when you move into an intermediate athlete, that's when it kind of goes more into frequency and volume. And now when it comes to frequency, intensity, and volume, you can only do 2 of those at the same time. You have to rotate between them. So you can't do all 3 of them at once because you'll burn out. So I definitely would say that an intermediate athlete would need to, or an intermediate person would need to be focusing on frequency. So training, at least 5 to 6 times a week, and then starting to up the volume. So they build a foundation and they build strength and they build an aerobic base. And then when it comes to an advanced athlete, that's where we start switching more between both of them in order to make sure we're still making progress. So we're looking at the principles of adding in intensity. So that's where we start ramping it up a lot. And then we either focus on intensity and frequency, or intensity and volume, or we move into a volume and frequency. So you can kind of see how we rotate those 3 around depending on where they're at, or also where they're at in the training cycle, where they're at in terms of the year, and also where they're at in terms of just how they're recovering from their training. And the problem is is that you'll see a general population person or a client, and they'll want to do the thing that the advanced athlete is doing without actually going step by step when it comes to the principles, right? So you have to have that frequency base first, then move into volume. And consistency and sustainability is the most important part of any training program out there. And methodology could be tweaked to tailor to any kind of busy lifestyle, and that's really important as well. And when you overcome some of these pitfalls and you kind of start realizing at what stage you're at, it becomes a lot easier. And this is why having a coach is so important, because they can actually help you bring you back down to reality. Because I think a lot of people quit because their expectations or an outcome that they expect is set up to here, and then they need someone to help them guide them step by step to get there, because they just look at what everyone else is doing, and instead of actually backing off and being like, hey, this is where I'm at now, here's my next step, and here's the next step after that, and then actually having a roadmap there for you, and that's really important. And let's go into common misunderstandings and mistakes. So there's a lot of overemphasis on the why, on sorry, not on the why, but on the method rather than the why. So everyone will look at, not everyone, but people will look at a training program and be like, well, this so and so influencer does this style of training, so therefore it must work for me. But you don't see those little stages that they did, or the sport they did even before they did that, in order to get to where they're at. You just see the outcome and you're like, well, I want that. Well, guess what? It's not an iPad. You can't just buy it. So the methodology, and then the why behind it, this is why people jump from program to program, because they don't understand the principles or the why behind the training. Because let's be real, most of the training programs out there are very generic and they're broad, and they're not tailored specifically to you. So it'll work for like a lot of people, because guess what? That group of people actually need that, whereas the other group doesn't. So, for example, I've always been bad at handstand push-ups. So I should have more bias towards frequency and volume towards handstand push-ups rather than intensity. And intensity being, instead of doing it in a CrossFit workout, I need to be focused more on doing it in a lower heart rate setting, doing more reps with more sets and accumulating more volume, so that way I can eventually do that in a CrossFit workout. And sticking to a methodology that no longer aligns with your personal goals or your fitness level, it's time to switch up that methodology, or at least change up the principles behind it. And when you ignore foundational principles like movement quality or anything, in the pursuit of short-term gains, then that's where bad things happen, where injuries happen, you overtrain, and you stop making progress, and then eventually you quit. So some key takeaways from this is, first off, identify your fitness goals and your principles, and you have to evaluate and see, does this current training align with those principles? And you have to be able to adapt, so you have to be willing to modify or change methodologies when you need to. Because again, what gets you from point A to point B isn't going to take you from point B to point C. And you actually have to commit to these principles. So these are non-negotiable. These, like something like progressive overload, is going to continue to work regardless of where you're at, no matter what stage you're at, whether it's beginner or advanced. And you have to build your fitness journey around principles first and the methodology second. So what I encourage you to do is to reflect on your fitness principles and actually share them with your coach. And then, see if what you're currently doing is actually aligned with where you want to go. And if you need other resources or you need other help, just come talk to us. We're more than happy to talk to you about how we can make tweaks to our training program to actually get you to where you want to go, whether it be fat loss, muscle gain, or you want to go for performance, movement quality, whatever it is. We're always here to chat, and we want to make you guys better. So if this was helpful, please leave me a 5-star review, that way I know to make more content just like this. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Red Wolf CrossFit, and DM your content suggestions there. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, good luck, have fun. Nailed it.